Hey guys, it's me, Mr. 250, and welcome back to 999. So we're getting our way along to make our last decision, and I was asked by multiple people to do this one, and I've actually seen it already, but I'd forgotten to record it last time. So this is what we're trying to assume what June is afraid of, and it's very interesting. So we're just gonna go forward with it. So June is probably afraid of being locked up alone with a boy. After a little thought, Junpei decided that she had to be nervous about being locked up in a small space alone with a boy. In a way, it was kind of cute. Very demure, you could say, he thought. Still, even though it wasn't exactly roomy in the elevator, they weren't going to be pressed up against one another. At least, they didn't have to be. Still, it was making her nervous. Junpei couldn't help but think how innocent she was. Come on, let's go. Again, he stepped towards the elevator. And again, he felt himself restrained. I said, wait a minute. Why? Aren't you afraid, Jumpy? Afraid of what? Well, I've never, she never been in an elevator with a man alone before? Even so, she did seem awfully alarmed. I might get wet. What? Down there, I'd get soaking wet. Well, I mean, of course you would. That's the way it works. I mean, I've never heard of anyone else getting soaking wet somewhere else. That's true. You don't mind? Mind what? Getting wet? Well, I don't know, I'd probably, like it. Gosh, Jumpy, you're so brave. Really? I mean, I kind of think any guy would do the same thing, you know? What happens, happens, right? If you get the chance, you've just got to go for it. That's what a man's supposed to do, I guess. You're so cool, Jumpy. I really admire you. That doesn't really seem like the sort of thing you ought to admire someone for. I'm really scared. Yeah. I mean, like you said, you've never done it before. Yes. So, I don't think I'll be able to last very long, and then it'll be over. Over? Yes. I'll go to heaven. Heaven? It feels kind of like you're floating in space, and your mind gets all fuzzy. Like when you pass out. At least, that's what I've heard from people who have experienced it. Yes, I've heard that too. Although, I don't think the same thing happens to guys. What? Huh? But it would happen to men too, wouldn't it? It would happen to anyone. Once it gets into your body, the same thing happens to everyone. Well, I mean, it usually doesn't go inside the man. I mean, generally. Yes, it does. Well, eventually it will. It's not like you really have a choice. Your body will force you to swallow some of it eventually. What are you trying to do to me? Nothing. I'm not going to do anything to you. I'm just saying that that's what happens. It's a psychological reaction to what you're experiencing. Was that really how it happened? It occurred to Junpei that perhaps that was how it worked. Perhaps he'd been mistaken all these years. Had he misunderstood life so bravely? The thought terrified him. June seemed to be entirely oblivious to Junpei's mounting confusion and terror. I know most men probably have larger lungs, but even then, I don't think you could hold your breath for 20 or even 10 minutes. Eventually, you'd have to breathe, and then the water would get into your lungs. Once that happens, your body won't be able to get oxygen anymore, and you'll start to feel that floaty feeling as you pass out. Finally, Junpei understood. He understood what June was trying to say, and why she was so scared. Yeah, you're right. You wouldn't last very long. See? She was afraid that the only elevator button pointed down. And at this point, of course, that meant that the elevator couldn't go any higher than the floor they were on. As he thought about it, Junpei realized he hadn't seen elevators on the A or B deck, so we've seen this part now. And I'm going to skip ahead, but a very interesting bits of dialogue there, I'd have to say. But there's another bit right there. I don't think there's any more till we get to the final decision, so we're going to skip ahead till then. So see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, welcome back. We're here at the decision again where we get to choose, and it turns out door 1 is where we need to go, right here. So we're going to select door 1, and there's a lot more dialogue to skip here, but I just wanted to keep you guys in the loop, and I'll get back to you once something's different. From what I know, it's going to be different pretty soon into getting into the room. So, oh, wait. Is this different? Oh, no. Okay, so welcome back. So we're in the room, and apparently, I'm assuming we have to solve this puzzle as well, but the guide I have right here is telling me that the first thing we need to do is to check the pocket watch, which is in this drawer. Except that's a desk, and I'm not trying to look at the desk. There, the pocket watch. So this is a pocket watch. And at this point, Ace comes in. If you remember, Ace says, "Oh, the pocket watch, I just come to check on you." And last time he said, "Well, you know, it's not a problem. You know, you're coming in here." But this time, no, this time, we have a problem with you, Ace. Yeah, there is. Ace's eyebrows went up. You checked on us. Now get out of here. We split this stuff up for a reason, alright? It was a lie. There was no reason to split up the work. Junpei wanted to talk to Clover privately. That was why he sent Ace to the wheelhouse, which, if you remember, Clover had gotten cut off by 7, so she hadn't finished talking about what she wanted to talk to us about. There was something he wanted to ask Clover, and he didn't want anyone else to hear him ask it. He also knew that Clover would likely remain silent if there was anyone else around when he asked. That was why he was so desperate to send Ace back to the wheelhouse. Ace opened his mouth, then took another look at Junpei and shut it again. A small smirk appeared on his face. "Oh ho, I see, of course." He looked Junpei over. Then he glanced at Clover. "I apologize for the intrusion." "Well, best of luck." So we managed to get Ace out of here, which is an important step. Ace gave Junpei a knowing pat on the shoulder and left. Whew. Junpei let out a sigh and brushed a few drops of sweat from his forehead. He turned and found himself looking straight into Clover's eyes. She heard what Ace had said. She regarded Junpei with caution. What was that about? She was clearly suspicious, and with good reason. Junpei's eyes widened, and he held up his hands in a gesture of innocence. No. It's nothing like that. What's it like, then? I just wanted to hear the rest of that story. I didn't get a chance to ask you about it until now. What story? About the experiment. Remember, the one you started to tell me in the operating room? You said something about an experiment that happened here 9 years ago. Clover bit her lip. She stared down at the floor for several long moments. And when she spoke, it was barely audible. I'm sorry, but I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm just not in the mood, okay? You understand, right? I keep thinking about my brother, which at this point she has seen the person that we're assuming is her dead brother. I can't stop. I mean, who would do something like that? To my brother. I can't forgive them. I'm not gonna let them get away with it. They're gonna pay for it, I promise. So... Her shoulders were shaking. Drops of blood had sprung up on her lips where she was biting them. She wiped it off and looked at Junpei, his eyes fierce and angry. Junpei? Who do you think did it? Her voice was cold and scarcely above a whisper. Junpei gulped. Well, who could it be? Well, if what Seven had said was right, then there would have to be at least 2 of them. Now, we don't know about, you know, going back and grabbing the number 9 bracelet. You need at least 3 people to open the number doors, and if you subtract Snake, that means there were at least 2 other people. You're right. So, what does that mean? Well, if we just look at the bracelet numbers, we should be able to figure it out. Who could have opened door 3 with Snake? Well, really, who and who, or who and who? You mean it could have been 4 people? Well, technically it's possible. And that's what I was arguing earlier, is that, you know, technically it doesn't have to necessarily be 2 people. It could have been 4. I don't know. That doesn't seem very likely. Why? I'll tell you later. Why don't we just assume it was only 2 other people, for now? Okay, got it. Let's do that then. Then who do you think it could be? Junpei crossed his arms and thought. Snake's bracelet number was 2. Which 2 bracelet numbers added to 2 would give a digital root of 3? Let's see. Oh, good lord. That is a lot of people. Okay. I'm surprised there aren't any things on here that could accuse Junpei of it. Now, I'm not sure if this is important, but I've got a walkthrough right next to me. Let's see. So, this is assuming you're removing Junpei and Clover. Okay, so I'm looking here. Out of all the options we have, the only one that fits, out of these, you know, obviously out of... these aren't right, we know, which we've seen in the other ending, but out of all of these, the only one that works is Santa and Seven. And apparently, none of the other options lead to interesting dialogue, so we're just going to skip them. Would it be Santa and 7? 2 plus 3 plus 7 equals 12, which equals 3. 3! Could it be... Were Santa and 7 the killers? What's wrong? Clover looked at Junpei, and he looked back at her. There was no point in hiding it. He told her his conclusions. That's what I thought. She looked less surprised than he'd expected. Santa and 7. If it was 2 people, then that's the only combination that works. Hey, wait a minute there. Don't you think it's a little too early to be jumping to conclusions? Well, all I said is that those 2 would have been able to open door 3 with your brother. There might be other possibilities. Well, what other possibilities? He didn't have an answer. He was ready to admit defeat when Clover spoke. Are you saying you think that it was 3 or 4 people? I really don't think that's likely. Why? Well, because it's harder to convince more people to murder someone, I think, is what it would be. Can I borrow your pen and paper? Clover put her hand out expectantly. Junpei pulled out his pen and pad of paper and handed them to her. She opened the notebook and wrote down several simple addition problems. Eventually she had 8, which proved a digital root of 3, provided. Okay. So, it looks like there's multiple ones here that could make this digital root of 3. And they're gonna read them all out. But just like I thought, there are multiple options to give this digital root of 3. What's this? These are the combinations for 3 or 4 people. These 8 combinations are the only possible ones. I see. Junpei. Yeah? I can trust you, right? And I think that's the most important part about not getting Clover to axe you in the back, is getting her trust. And you need that trust long enough to keep her from axing you, so that you can get to the point where you can find Snake, is what I'm imagining it'll be like. Of course. Why would you need to ask that? Really? Yeah. So, then, I should get rid of B, D, G, and H, right? Of course. Just cross them out. And I believe... Yeah, take out the ones with 4, and I believe The ones that he was crossing out were the ones that he was involved in, because I saw quite a couple of them had 5 in them. So what does that leave? A and E. So, yeah, see, so the ones with 4 and the ones with 5 have been removed. So, if these were true, that would be either Ace, Santa, and June, or Ace, Santa, Lotus, and 7. Which isn't impossible. According to the rules of the game, these are all valid ways that he could have gotten locked in there. But it seems unlikely, and maybe if we're lucky they'll have some extra information that I personally don't know about. Which, you know, because Clover seems a little like, it couldn't have been that many. Here's why. Wait, it can't be A. Why not? Because June's in that one. There's no way she'd do something like that. I don't know, she's kind of crazy. Are you sure? I'd bet my life on it. Okay then. It's kind of funny considering that he did lose his life quite a couple times in the story to betting on June. Okay then, I can cross off A too, right? Yeah. Well, what have we got left? E. Now, I think the reason that's a problem is it's got so many moving parts. It would require so much collaboration to get that done. Do you know what this means? Everyone besides me, you, and June would be working together. And that's why it seems unlikely. Do you think that's likely? If there were 4 people working together, they wouldn't be very cautious. I don't think they'd try that hard to hide what they were doing if they outnumbered us, right? Well, you do have a point. And besides, if Ace and 7 are working together, they could have easily gotten rid of me when I went to the shower room with them. But they didn't. They didn't even try anything. If they were the killers, why wouldn't they? Her voice was calm, but Junpei had only to look in her eye to know it was a forced calm. There were tears forming at the corners of her eyes, and she was blinking furiously to keep them back. Perhaps by attempting an objective analysis of who might have killed her brother, she had been able to distance herself from the harsh reality of his death. Probably another important thing to keep her from going axe crazy. The more she struggled to act unconcerned, the more Junpei felt his heart tighten. Okay. Yeah, well, that does make sense. It seems pretty unlikely that it was as many as 3 or 4 people. And that's the other reason, is there's so many moving parts that it seems like it would be difficult to convince these people, and why would they go to all this trouble if they outnumbered all the other people? It's just an awful lot of trouble to go to. Yeah, then that means there's a good chance it was Santa and 7. And, you know, there's another thing to add to that. This game has surprised me so much, though, that it still could have done that and been reasonable behind it, I think. That's how it looks. But why would they do it? There was a moment of silence. I think I know. What is it? He laid his hand gently on her shoulder. He was close, so close, to the answer. And then Ace? Then Ace chose the worst possible moment to return. He raised a knowing eyebrow and then spoke. Have I interrupted something? What do you want? There was something I wanted to speak with you about, Junpei. Could you come with me in this dark corner with this knife? He turned on his heel and walked back towards the wheelhouse. Junpei looked over at Clover. He gave her a short nod, hoping that she would be willing to talk to him later, and followed Ace. Let's see, what did you want to talk to me about? Ace looked at Junpei and smiled. Cold, sadistic smile. Perhaps more of a smirk than a smile. There was something I wanted to check. Yeah? What's that? If you'll excuse me. With no warning, Ace slipped his hand into the pocket of Junpei's vest. Oh, is this when he finds out that he's got the paper? What are you doing? He reached for Ace's arm. But it was already too late. The older man's hand were the pieces of paper. Okay, so I'm going to skip this until we find something new. Okay, so next thing that we had to do after that was we had to go through the puzzle. I completed it, and we've gone in this next room. We've gone, you can probably see it on the bottom screen. It says ZERO. You know, whenever we push the button on the keyboard that comes up with 0, this is the room right before you normally get chopped in the back by an axe. And they have this little conversation that says, you know, they're looking at 0 and it says, do you think it's really 0? No way, that's him. Didn't I tell you already 0 is one of us? Yeah, right. And this is new dialogue. This is, I was looking online, this is the important thing to tell you, hey, now you've got the true ending. So that means we've got it, which is really good, because that was a lot of work to put into to get nothing out of it. So, well, even if he wasn't one of us, there's no way that man could be 0. Don't you get it? The letters that spell 0 on the TV screen. The captain's clothes he's got on. And of course the bracelet with the 0 on it. It's too obvious. Which I was thinking, I'm like, that just doesn't seem right. Like, why would 0 be here? That just doesn't seem like that's 0. Look, this is 0 right here. This dead body is 0. Doesn't that seem kind of funny to you? You're right. Only an idiot would see through something like that. Wouldn't see through something like that. No, that's not the point. I'm not trying to make fun of them for thinking a trick like this would work. I'm sure they didn't think it would work. Which makes me wonder, why did they do it? I think this is a challenge. A challenge from the person who's really behind all of this. He's making fun of us. Don't you get it? If whoever killed this guy really wanted us to think this corpse was 0, they'd never have put a bracelet on him. Walking about with a 0 bracelet would be like hanging a sign around your neck that said, I did it. Anyone with a brain would be able to see that guy's supposed to look like everything 0 is supposed to be. Just like we did. The killer must have known we wouldn't think he was 0 and put the bracelet on him anyway. Do you know why? Why? Like I said, he's mocking us. Too bad, suckers. This isn't 0. It's the same bad joke a lot of criminals like to play, that you sit back and watch people run in circles. Look, here I am. What's wrong, guys? Come on, catch me if you can. That's really twisted. Almost as twisted as getting your friend to give you an axe in the back. But it almost seems kind of childish. Yeah, you're right. It's really childish. It's just like a game to whoever this person is. That's what seems funny to me. Junpei bent down next to the corpse. Alright, let's get back to the point. Who killed this man? I don't know. And what's this guy's deal? Who is he? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Who is this guy? How would I know that? If I knew anything, I would have told you. You have no idea who he is? Why would I? Junpei sat back down on his haunches and thought. We should check and see if he's got anything on him that might tell us who he is. Like an axe. Give me a hand here, Clover. What? We've got to flip him over. How else are we going to search his pockets? Clover didn't move. Junpei had no choice but to move the body on his own. He grabbed hold of an area not completely covered in blood and shoved. It took a moment, but eventually Junpei felt the man's bulk begin to shift. But just as it did, something fell from the man's left wrist. Well, his bracelet, obviously, because he's dead. The bracelet with the 0 on the face. That is a creepy image right there. Okay, we're going through this little charade of how to remove the bracelets. Yep, there's only 2 ways to do it. 1, you escape. 2, you die. We're very familiar with this, mind you. Junpei stared at the bracelet. This man. He's dead, isn't he? Well, I'm glad you were able to discern that. No, it's just... I guess I really didn't think about it until right now. If his bracelet's off, that means he's dead. Well, it's pretty obvious that he's dead. You don't really need to look at his bracelet to figure that out he's dead. Now, maybe this is an alternate way for Junpei to get the idea that maybe Ace is trying to get the 9 bracelet. Maybe that's what's going to trigger it in his head. Yeah, I guess you're right. It is pretty obvious. He looks a lot better than the other bodies we've seen, though, you know? I mean, if there wasn't all this blood, he'd almost look like he was still alive. I mean, I know it's kind of a messed up thing to say, but he kind of has it better, you know? Dying from a bomb going off inside of you, I mean, that's just... Some of Snake's bones went right through his skin. Ugh, no, let's not talk about that to Clover. I think the explosion must have thrown him against a wall or something. There was a broken bone just sticking out of his left arm. Oh, there we go. Suddenly, Junpei realized what he was saying. How could he have been so cruel? He clapped his hands over his mouth. But it was already too late. He turned to look at Clover. Okay. Because that was the problem, was Clover was really upset the whole time, and we never really had a chance to, you know, talk to Clover about... She was like, I think she was dead pretty much by the time that we had found fake Snake. But she's alive this time, so maybe she can give us some extra insight. And I'm kind of wondering what Ace is going to do in this situation. She was glaring at him furiously. What did you just say? Her words sounded cold. He knew an apology could hardly atone for what he'd done, but he tried anyway. Oh man, I am so sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I really don't know what I was thinking. I mean, no, that's not what I'm talking about. What did you say about his arm? Arm? Yes, his left arm. You said it, didn't you? Well, yeah, I did, but... I mean, didn't you see it too? Of course not. I could barely look at him. Clover took a quick deep breath. Are you sure it was his left arm? Junpei thought back. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. And he had a broken bone, right? What are you getting at here? Just shut up and answer me. She shoved her face closer to his. He could see the fire in her eyes. Junpei winced and swallowed. Yeah, he did. It was pretty bad, too. The bone was sticking out of the arm. No sooner were the words out of his mouth than Clover's expression changed. Suddenly, she was crying. Junpei wasn't sure what to do. Thank you. It was close to the last thing he had expected to hear. Junpei had no idea what had just happened. He didn't think he'd done anything worthy of thanks, and he couldn't understand why she would have chosen that moment to begin crying. So he simply stood there, confused. Thank you, Junpei. She thanked him again, and then something even stranger happened. She picked up an axe. It was the last thing she ever did. Clover threw herself into Junpei's surprised arms. Hey, what's going on with you? I'm sorry, it's just, I'm so happy. That his arm's broken? Keep in mind, in this situation, I think... Yeah. Junpei doesn't know, because we went through door 7, not door 8. Junpei wasn't with Clover when she told him about Snake's broken arm, so he doesn't know about this, so she's kind of just going like crazy right now. The body in the shower room, it isn't his. It isn't my brother. Huh? It's not Snake. Why on earth would you think that? Because his left arm is... She stopped herself. I'm sorry. I really shouldn't be talking about this. Junpei decided it would be prudent not to press her for any more information. If she did not wish to tell him, she certainly had a reason for doing so. I'm pretty sure if Ace knew this, he might go a little crazy, possibly. Because the only time when we confronted him with the information was when we kind of had it cornered. And then, you know, he went off on the deep end and he did that thing with his eyes where he's like, and, you know, all crazy and stuff. Perhaps more importantly, however, if Clover was so certain, then she was likely right. That meant that the body in the shower room wasn't Snake's. It wasn't much, but that knowledge lifted some of the weight from Junpei's heart. He's still alive. I'm so happy. Tears shone in her eyes. Those tears melted Junpei's heart. As she cried, she had pushed herself up against his chest like a child. Junpei put his arms around her and held her tight. Junpei, you were right. No matter what happens, you can never lose hope. You have to remember what's most important, and that's to have faith and have love. If you can remember all of those, that'll bring you good luck. Clover reached into her pocket and pulled something out. The four-leaf clover. Who would have thought that that little four-leaf clover bookmark would be the most important thing to keeping people from being dead right now? It was a laminated bookmark with a four-leaf clover. I only made it here because you gave me this. I was suspicious of everybody, and I was angry and miserable, but because I had this four-leaf clover, because of what you said to me, Junpei hadn't thought of his words would have had such an effect on her. Her words were making him feel a little awkward. Thank you so much, Junpei. She looked up at him. He scratched his nose and pretended to notice something interesting somewhere else in the room. If you really want to thank somebody, you should be thanking Santa. Santa? Why? Well, he was the one who gave me that thing. And the words for each leaf, I got that from him too. Then suddenly, axe to the back, Clover broke away from Junpei. Huh? He looked confused. He hadn't thought she'd react that poorly. Clover began to pace across the room. 6 steps to the left. 6 steps to the right. Another 6 to the left. And then she stopped. Did Santa really tell you those things? Oh, maybe this is going to convince her that Santa's not the bad guy, maybe? Her eyes were serious, but not angry. Yeah, he did. Did I, say something wrong? No, not at all. In fact, this could be really good news. I think. You think? Santa knew about the words in the clover. The only people who should know about that are the other subjects. Oh, okay, that's a little bit of more of an interesting note than I thought. Subjects? The other people who were in the experiment 9 years ago, with my brother and me. But he's blind. And I was part of the Nevada test group. So neither of us would be able to recognize the faces of the people who were on this boat. Oh, whoa, time out. Junpei held up his hands. He took a deep breath and let it out. Let's just calm down for a second, okay? Start from the top. Don't start with the end and then jump to the middle. You gotta start at 1 and then move to 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. If you don't tell me what's the stuff in the right order, I'm never gonna be able to figure it out. Clover nodded. Alright, let's start with this experiment. What happened on this boat 9 years ago? Do you know about morphogenic fields? And let me think. I don't know how much longer this thing is. I'm assuming we're gonna have to finish the puzzle, so I'm gonna keep going for another 10 minutes, and if it doesn't end, like we just keep going with stuff, then I'll cut it there, but I'll give it a little bit longer to wrap it up. He did, and the realization sent chills down Junpei's spine. Alright, how about this? It always goes back to morphogenic field. Theory of the telepathic mechanism. Junpei recounted what Lotus had told him earlier. Clover nodded. Telepathy, huh? Well, that's not really it, but I suppose it's similar. So, they were testing telepathy on the ship? Yeah, I guess so. So, I'm thinking somebody's missing an L in that exactly. What exactly did they have you guys do? The same thing that we're doing now. Exactly the same thing. What? The nonary game. 9 people were on this boat, and 9 others were put in the building in Nevada. And the game started. Junpei grabbed the sides of his head. Look, I'm sorry, but I don't get it. What did the nonary game and some telepathy experiment have to do with each other? Clover bit her lip. She blinked back sudden tears. What had happened to her in Nevada? The ability to access morphogenic field is affected by a couple of things. The first is epiphany, and the other is danger. You know how sometimes when you're up against a really tough problem, and then the answer just kind of pops into your head? This kind of goes back to when we were in door 6, what Santa said about the rats that can only experience, I can't think of the word. They can only experience inspiration. What was it? I can't remember. They can only experience inspiration when they're in danger, and he said it in a funny way that I liked, but I can't remember exactly how that was. That's an epiphany. And what you learn from the epiphany can be transmitted with telepathy. When you add danger to that equation, then it gets easier to transmit that information over telepathy. So, you're saying the nonary game was supposed to introduce the element of danger? Yeah, but it couldn't be just any old danger. It had to be life and death. And someone did actually die. A girl. I think the same girl the Seven was talking about. Junpei felt the sudden grip of despair on his heart. Something deep and distant and powerful squeezed, and for a moment he felt very, very empty and alone. She was on the boat with my brother. I was in Nevada, so I never met her, but I did hear her name. Her name was, the sound of the door opening was like a gunshot. Junpei spun around. Oh, my apologies. I seem to have disturbed you. Ace, you two must have strong stomachs. I can't imagine how you could stay in this room for so long. Ace glanced down at the floor. At the corpse covered in blood. At any rate, Junpei, would you be so kind as to come help me with something? I'm having a little trouble, and I could really use your assistance. Come on, it'll only take a moment. With that, he turned and walked back towards the communications office. Clover waited until he was out of sight, and then spoke in a small, quiet voice. I don't want Ace to hear us. We can talk about this later. Huh? Hey, wait! Clover ignored him. From outside, Junpei could hear Ace calling. Junpei, what are you doing in there? Hurry up! Grumbling to himself, Junpei stomped off towards the communications office. Okay, so we're back to puzzling, and I'm going to take a break here. This is where the episode's going to end. And we'll start next time from the next place we go. I don't know if it's at the end of this puzzle or we're going to have new dialogue. In fact, if you give me just a second, I can scroll through this guide I have here. And see if anything different happens. Okay, back again. I just looked it up. So, there's a little bit of something different. I haven't looked very far into it because I'm trying to keep spoilers down for myself, even though I kind of need to know what happens so I can record it properly. I'm still trying to keep spoilers down for myself so I don't scroll very far through these things. But it looks like there's a little bit of an addition to, if you remember when we get the Alice book, which we thought was all ice. Well, in that book there's a key card, and then we get a little bit of a flashback, and I just recognize it off of the pictures. So we'll go to that next time. That's pretty much where we'll start off at. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'm pretty darn excited. Like, I don't know how much longer the game is. I'm thinking that this is going to be a very long run, though. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for more 999. Bye!